สำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาเป็นองค์กรหลักหนึ่งในกระทรวงศึกษาธิการขับเคลื่อนภารกิจโดยคณะกรรมการสภาการศึกษาในการเสนอนโยบายและให้คำปรึกษาแก่รัฐมนตรีเพื่อวางรากฐานการศึกษาไทยผ่านกฎหมายการศึกษาเพื่อลดความเหลื่อมล้ำและเพิ่มคุณภาพอย่างเป็นรูปธรรมวางกรอบทิศทางและแผนการศึกษาของประเทศกำหนดมาตรฐานการศึกษาของชาติที่ตอบสนองความต้องการของผู้เรียนยกระดับคุณภาพเด็กปฐมวัยสู่มาตรฐานสากลเป็นคนมนุษย์ที่มีคุณภาพของประเทศในอนาคตพัฒนาระบบคุณวุฒิแห่งชาติและเชื่อมโยงธนาคารหน่วยกิจผ่านแพลตฟอร์มดิจิทัลที่ทันสมัยวิจัยและพัฒนาการศึกษาและ Big Data เพื่อกำหนดนโยบายที่แม่นยำวิเคราะห์แนวโน้มและประเมินผลการศึกษาไทยเปรียบเทียบกับสากลยกระดับขีดความสามารถการแข่งขันของประเทศสร้างการมีส่วนร่วมกับเครือข่ายการศึกษาสู่ผลลัพธ์เชิงสร้างสรรค์ในทุกมิติเราหนุนเสริมพลังจากทุกภาคส่วนเพื่อสร้างการศึกษาที่มีคุณภาพสำหรับทุกคนผ่านการปรับโฉมการบริหารจัดการองค์กรให้ยืดหยุ่นคล่องตัวและมีธรรมาภิบาลขับเคลื่อนภารกิจอย่างรวดเร็วเท่าทันโลกชี้ทิศคิดร่วมกันก้าวทันโลกสำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษา ำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาเป็นองค์กรหลักหนึ่งในกระทรวงศึกษาธิการขับเคลื่อนภารกิจโดยคณะกรรมการสภาการศึกษาในการเสนอนโยบายและให้คำปรึกษาแก่รัฐมนตรีเพื่อวางรากฐานการศึกษาไทยผ่านกฎหมายการศึกษาเพื่อลดความเหลื่อมล้ำและเพิ่มคุณภาพอย่างเป็นรูปธรรมวางกรอบทิศทางและแผนการศึกษาของประเทศกำหนดมาตรฐานการศึกษาของชาติที่ตอบสนองความต้องการของผู้เรียนยกระดับคุณภาพเด็กประถมวัยสู่มาตรฐานสากลเป็นคนมนุษย์ที่มีคุณภาพของประเทศในอนาคตพัฒนาระบบคุณวุฒิแห่งชาติและเชื่อมโยงธนาคารหน่วยกิจผ่านแพลตฟอร์มดิจิทัลที่ทันสมัยวิจัยและพัฒนาการศึกษาและ Big Data เพื่อกำหนดนโยบายที่แม่นยำวิเคราะห์แนวโน้มและประเมินผลการศึกษาไทยเปรียบเทียบกับสากลยกระดับขีดความสามารถการแข่งขันของประเทศสร้างการมีส่วนร่วมกับเครือข่ายการศึกษาสู่ผลลัพธ์เชิงสร้างสรรค์ในทุกมิติเราหนุนเสริมพลังจากทุกภาคส่วนเพื่อสร้างการศึกษาที่มีคุณภาพสำหรับทุกคนผ่านการปรับโฉมการบริหารจัดการองค์กรให้ยืดหยุ่นคล่องตัวและมีธรรมาภิบาลขับเคลื่อนภารกิจอย่างรวดเร็วเท่าทันโลกชี้ทิศคิดร่วมกันก้าวทันโลกสำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษา ำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาเป็นองค์กรหลักหนึ่งในกระทรวงศึกษาธิการขับเคลื่อนภารกิจโดยคณะกรรมการสภาการศึกษาในการเสนอนโยบายและให้คำปรึกษาแก่รัฐมนตรีเพื่อวางรากฐานการศึกษาไทยผ่านกฎหมายการศึกษาเพื่อลดความเหลื่อมล้ำและเพิ่มคุณภาพอย่างเป็นรูปธรรมวางกรอบทิศทางและแผนการศึกษาของประเทศกำหนดมาตรฐานการศึกษาของชาติที่ตอบสนองความต้องการของผู้เรียนยกระดับคุณภาพเด็กประถมวัยสู่มาตรฐานสากลเป็นคนมนุษย์ที่มีคุณภาพของประเทศในอนาคตพัฒนาระบบคุณวุฒิแห่งชาติและเชื่อมโยงธนาคารหน่วยกิจผ่านแพลตฟอร์มดิจิทัลที่ทันสมัยวิจัยและพัฒนาการศึกษาและ Big Data เพื่อกำหนดนโยบายที่แม่นยำวิเคราะห์แนวโน้มและประเมินผลการศึกษาไทยเปรียบเทียบกับสากลยกระดับขีดความสามารถการแข่งขันของประเทศสร้างการมีส่วนร่วมกับเครือข่ายการศึกษาสู่ผลลัพธ์เชิงสร้างสรรค์ในทุกมิติเราหนุนเสริมพลังจากทุกภาคส่วนเพื่อสร้างการศึกษาที่มีคุณภาพสำหรับทุกคนผ่านการปรับโฉมการบริหารจัดการองค์กรให้ยืดหยุ่นคล่องตัวและมีธรรมาภิบาลขับเคลื่อนภารกิจอย่างรวดเร็วเท่าทันโลกชี้ทิศคิดร่วมกันก้าวทันโลกสำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษา ำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาเป็นองค์กรหลักหนึ่งในกระทรวงศึกษาธิการขับเคลื่อนภารกิจโดยคณะกรรมการสภาการศึกษาในการเสนอนโยบายและให้คำปรึกษาแก่รัฐมนตรีเพื่อวางรากฐานการศึกษาไทยผ่านกฎหมายการศึกษาเพื่อลดความเหลื่อมล้ำและเพิ่มคุณภาพอย่างเป็นรูปธรรมวางกรอบทิศทางและแผนการศึกษาของประเทศกำหนดมาตรฐานการศึกษาของชาติที่ตอบสนองความต้องการของผู้เรียนยกระดับคุณภาพเด็กปฐมวัยสู่มาตรฐานสากลเป็นคนมนุษย์ที่มีคุณภาพของประเทศในอนาคตพัฒนาระบบคุณวุฒิแห่งชาติและเชื่อมโยงธนาคารหน่วยกิจผ่านแพลตฟอร์มดิจิทัลที่ทันสมัยวิจัยและพัฒนาการศึกษาและ Big Data เพื่อกำหนดนโยบายที่แม่นยำวิเคราะห์แนวโน้มและประเมินผลการศึกษาไทยเปรียบเทียบกับสากลยกระดับขีดความสามารถการแข่งขันของประเทศสร้างการมีส่วนร่วมกับเครือข่ายการศึกษาสู่ผลลัพธ์เชิงสร้างสรรค์ในทุกมิติเราหนุนเสริมพลังจากทุกภาคส่วนเพื่อสร้างการศึกษาที่มีคุณภาพสำหรับทุกคนผ่านการปรับโฉมการบริหารจัดการองค์กรให้ยืดหยุ่นคล่องตัวและมีธรรมาภิบาลขับเคลื่อนภารกิจอย่างรวดเร็วเท่าทันโลกชี้ทิศคิดร่วมกันก้าวทันโลกสำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษา
ชุมในเวลานี้ได้เลยนะคะ หลังจากที่ท่านรัฐมนตรีเข้ามาเราจะเริ่มพิธีเปิดอย่างเป็นทางการค่ะเพื่อเป็นการต้อนรับท่านในวันนี้นะคะแล้วก็เพื่อให้เราได้ภาพในช่วงของเวลาพิธีเปิดอย่างสวยงามอยากให้ทุกท่านนะคะนั่งรออยู่ภายในห้องประชุมโดยพร้อมเพรียงกันในเวลานี้ค่ะเชิญทุกท่านที่อยู่บริเวณด้านนอกนะคะและรอบๆห้องประชุมเข้าสู่ภายในห้องประชุมในเวลานี้ตอนนี้ได้เลยนะคะขอบคุณค่ะ ต้อนรับท่านรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการและคณะผู้บริหารเข้าสู่ภายในห้องประชุมค่ะอีกสักครู่เราจะเข้าสู่พิธีเปิดของงานของเราในวันนี้นะคะ
So, good morning, everyone. Before commencing the academic conference, may I respectfully invite all participants to rise and observe 1 minute of silence in remembrance and to express our deepest gratitude for the great kindness of Her Majesty Queen Sirikit, the Queen Mother, and Her Royal Highness Princess Pachara Kitiyapha Narendra Thepayawadi, Princess Rajasarini Siripat
สวัสดีแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านค่ะก่อนจะเข้าสู่การประชุมทางวิชาการในวันนี้ขอเชิญทุกท่านพร้อมใจกันยืนสงบนิ่งเพื่อถวายความอาลัยและน้อมรำลึกในพระมหากรุณาธิคุณอันหาที่สุดมิได้แด่สมเด็จพระนางเจ้าสิริกิติ์พระบรมราชินีนาถพระบรมราชชนนีพันปีหลวงและสมเด็จพระเจ้าลูกเธอเจ้าฟ้าพัชรกิติยาภานเรนทิราเทพยวดีกรมหลวงราชสารินีสิริพัฒน์มหาวชรราชธิดาเป็นเวลา1 นาทีค่ะ
Thank you, everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, Minister of Education, distinguished executive, honor speakers, respected researchers, educators, welcome to the Thailand International Conference on Education Research 2026. Resilient Futures, Building Adaptive, Equitable and Sustainable Educations. It is our pleasure to have all of you with us today at Aswin Grand Convention Hotel, Bangkok. I am Nathara Washiranan, will be your MC in English.
เรียนรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการคณะผู้บริหารผู้ทรงคุณวุฒินักวิจัยนักวิชาการตลอดจนแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านค่ะดิฉันนรินทร์ นิพาจิตผ่องศรีรับหน้าที่เป็นพิธีกรในวันนี้และดิฉันรู้สึกเป็นเกียรติอย่างยิ่งนะคะที่ได้รับหน้าที่พิธีกรในปีนี้อีก1 ครั้งค่ะและขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่การประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติด้านการวิจัยทางการศึกษา Thailand International Conference on Education Research 2026 หรือ ThaiCER 2026 ภายใต้หัวข้อ Resilient Future Building Adaptive, Equitable and Sustainable Education
The Office of Education Council recognizes the importance of working together in education research at both the international and international levels. This collaboration helps researchers share ideas, research finding innovations, and the best practice. It also supports development of education and preparing people with the skill needed for today changing the world, futures, and challenges. For this reason, the Office of Education Council, together with 18 partner organization, is proud to present ThaiCER 2026. This conference provides the platform of researchers, policymakers, education, and practitioners to share knowledge, inspire new ideas, and strengthen collaborations in education.
สำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาให้ความสำคัญกับการส่งเสริมและการสนับสนุนความร่วมมือด้านการวิจัยทางการศึกษาทั้งใน ระดับประเทศและระดับนานาชาติ เพื่อเป็นเวทีในการแลกเปลี่ยนองค์ความรู้ ผลงานวิจัย นวัตกรรม และแนวปฏิบัติที่ดีอันจะนำไปสู่การพัฒนาการศึกษา และการเตรียมกำลังคนให้สอดคล้องกับบริบทของประเทศไทย และการเปลี่ยนแปลงของโลกในอนาคต ด้วยเหตุนี้สำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาจึงได้ร่วมกับองค์กรเครือข่ายทางการศึกษาจำนวน 18 หน่วยงาน จัดงานประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติ ThaiCER 2026 ขึ้น เพื่อเป็นเวทีแห่งการเรียนรู้ แลกเปลี่ยนและสร้างความร่วมมือระหว่างนักวิจัย นักวิชาการ ผู้กำหนดนโยบาย ผู้ปฏิบัติงานด้านการศึกษาจากทั้งในและต่างประเทศ
This conference is made possible through the collaborations of 18 co-host and partner organizations, including the Princess Mahachakri Award Foundation, the Equitable Education Fund, UNICEF Thailand, the Office of Basic Education Commission, the Office of the Vocation Education Commission, the Secretary Office of Teachers Council of Thailand, the Office of Teacher Civil Service and Educational Personnel Commission, the Office of Permanent Secretary, Minister of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, the Council of University President Thailand, the Council of Rajamankala University of Technology, Presidents of Council of Rajapat University President of Thailand, the Thailand Education Deans Council, Thailand Science Research of Innovation, the Thailand Development Research Institute, the Southeast Asian Minister of Education Organization Regional Center of STEM Education, the Office of Knowledge Management and Development, the British Chamber of Commerce Thailand, and the Thailand Education Research Association.
การประชุมครั้งนี้ได้รับความร่วมมือจากองค์กรเครือข่ายด้านการศึกษาทั้งภาครัฐ ภาควิชาการและองค์กรระหว่างประเทศซึ่งร่วมสนับสนุนการจัดงานในครั้งนี้ได้แก่มูลนิธิรางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหาจักรีกองทุนเพื่อความเสมอภาคทางการศึกษาองค์การยูนิเซฟประเทศไทยสำนักงานคณะกรรมการการศึกษาขั้นพื้นฐานสำนักงานคณะกรรมการการอาชีวศึกษาสำนักงานเลขาธิการครุสภาสำนักงานคณะกรรมการข้าราชการครูและบุคลากรทางการศึกษาสำนักงานปลัดกระทรวงการอุดมศึกษาวิทยาศาสตร์วิจัยและนวัตกรรมที่ประชุมอธิการบดีแห่งประเทศไทยที่ประชุมคณะกรรมการอธิการบดีมหาวิทยาลัยเทคโนโลยีราชมงคลที่ประชุมอธิการบดีมหาวิทยาลัยราชภัฏสภาคณบดีคณะครุศาสตร์ศึกษาศาสตร์แห่งประเทศไทยสำนักงานคณะกรรมการส่งเสริมวิทยาศาสตร์วิจัยและนวัตกรรมสถาบันวิจัยเพื่อการพัฒนาประเทศไทยศูนย์ระดับภูมิภาค CMO ด้านสเต็มศึกษาสำนักงานบริหารและพัฒนาองค์ความรู้หอการค้าอังกฤษไทยและสมาคมวิจัยการศึกษาค่ะ
And now it is a great honor to invite Association Professor Dr. Prawit Erawan, Secretary General of the Office of Education Council to deliver the conference report. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
ลำดับต่อไปขอเรียนเชิญรองศาสตราจารย์ดร.ประวิตร เอราวัณเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษากล่าวรายงานวัตถุประสงค์ของการจัดงานในครั้งนี้ขอกราบเรียนเชิญค่ะ
Your Excellency, Mr. Praset Chantra Arunthong, the Minister of Education, Thailand, distinguished representatives from international organizations, extreme scholars, researchers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to deliver the reporting remarks at the Thailand International Conference on Educational Research or ThaiCER 2026. This conference is organized as an academic platform for the exchange of knowledge, the dissemination of research, and enhancement of the academic collaboration among researchers, educators, and stakeholders from the Thailand and the international communities. Its aim to advance education systems that are responsive to the challenges of our fast-changing world. Under the theme Resilient Futures, Building Adaptive, Equitable and Sustainable Educations, this conference highlights the urgent needs to develop education systems that are resilient, inclusive, and capable of the adaptive to ongoing transformation in our society and economies. ThaiCER 2026 has been made possible through the variable collaboration with key international partners, including the OECD, UNICEF, CMO, and WERA, as well as a strong network of the national and international scholars. The conference features a wide range of research presentations and discussions covering critical areas such as the innovative pedagogy, future skill, educational equity, student well-being, and the integration of artificial intelligence and technology in the education system. The Office of Education Councils, as the national policy agencies, we expect this conference will serve as the mechanism to bridge research, policies, and practice to support the education system development. We aim to provide a solid foundation that directly supports to the core policy of education for all and all for education, and our commitment to the education must come first. On behalf of the Office of Education Councils, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our partners and contributors for a very good support in making this conference possible. And now I would like to invite the Honorable Ministry of Education, Mr. Praset Chantrarongthong, to deliver the opening address and officially declare ThaiCER 2026 open. Thank you very much. Please.
กราบขอบพระคุณรองศาสตราจารย์ดร.ประวิตร เอราวัณเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาเป็นอย่างสูงค่ะลำดับต่อไปค่ะขอกราบเรียนเชิญท่านประเสริฐจันทรวงทองรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการกล่าวเปิดการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติด้านการวิจัยทางการศึกษา Thailand International Conference on Education Research 2026 และประกอบพิธีเปิดงานในวันนี้อย่างเป็นทางการเรียนเชิญท่านค่ะ
Distinguished guests, esteemed academic and researcher, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to preside over the opening of the Thailand International Conference on Education Research 2026, or ThaiCER 2026, convened under the compelling theme, Resilient Future, Building Adaptive, Equitable and Sustainable Education. In an era marked by rapid technological disruptions, global uncertainty, and complex society transformation, the concept of resilience has emerged as a defining imperative. Education systems around the world are no longer tasked solely with imparting knowledge. They are called upon to cultivate adaptability, foster innovation, and ensure inclusivity in the face of constant change. A resilient education system is one that not only withstands disruption, but evolves through it, empowering the learner with the competency, mindsets, and value necessary to navigate an unpredictable future with confidence and responsibility. For Thailand, this vision of resilience in education is deeply aligned with our nation's development trajectory. guided by long-term strategy and the government commitment to human capital development. We have placed education at the forefront of national priority. Our policy direction emphasizes that education must come first, not only as a social good, but as a strategic foundation for sustainable national progress. We are actively advancing policy that promote equitable access to education for all. Under the principle of learning anytime, anywhere, this includes the development of free online learning platform, the expansion of digital connectivity, and the creation of flexible learning pathways that accommodate diverse learners across all stages of life. At the same time, we have transforming the very structure of education to respond to the evolving demand of the future workforce. Through initiatives such as curriculum modernization, skill-based learning pathway, and closer collaboration with industry partners, we are striving to bridge the gap between education and employment, ensuring that learners are equipped with future-ready skills in areas such as AI, robotics, and advanced technology. ThaiCER 2026 represents a vital platform where these aspirations are brought to light through the power of research and collaboration. As outlined in the objective of this conference, this gathering serves not only a venue for a dissemination of academic knowledge, but also a dynamic forum for dialogue, innovation, and partnership among researchers, educators, and stakeholders from both Thailand and the international community. The thematic focus area of the conference, from innovative and future skills to educational equity, well-being, and the integration of AI and technology, reflect the multifaceted nature of resilience in education. They underscore the importance of building systems that are adaptive, inclusive, and sustainable, while remaining responsive to the needs of learners in a rapidly changing world. Moreover, the emphasis on research at a diverse of policy and practice in particular significant. In today's knowledge-based society, evidence-informed decision-making is essential to enhancing educational quality and strengthening national competitiveness. ThaiCER 2026 thus plays a crucial role in fostering a culture of research, encouraging innovation, and building collaborative networks that extend beyond borders. As we look toward the future, it is clear that resilience in education cannot be achieved by any single sector alone. It requires collective effort across government, academia, industry, and society at large. It calls for openness to new ideas, willingness to embrace change, and a shared commitment to a betterment of our learner and our nation. In closing, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Office of the Education Council and our organization and our organizing partner for their dedication in bringing this important conference to fruition. I also extend my warmest welcome to all participants, both from Thailand and abroad, and wish you a productive, insightful and inspiring experience. May ThaiCER 2026 serve as a catalyst for meaningful dialogue, impactful research, and transformative action, guiding us collectively toward a resilient and sustainable future of education. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
กราบขอบพระคุณท่านรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการเป็นอย่างสูงค่ะและขอเชิญให้ท่านยังคงอยู่ต่อบนเวทีเพื่อเตรียมนับถอยหลังเข้าสู่พิธีเปิดงานอย่างเป็นทางการในวันนี้นะคะลำดับต่อไปค่ะขอเรียนเชิญท่านผู้บริหารที่จะเข้าร่วมในการเปิดงานของเราในครั้งนี้ค่ะท่านแรกค่ะขอกราบเรียนเชิญรองศาสตราจารย์ดร.ประวิตร เอราวัณขึ้นสู่เวทีค่ะและท่านถัดมาค่ะเรียนเชิญศาสตราจารย์นายแพทย์วิจารณ์พาณิชย์ขึ้นสู่เวทีค่ะเรียนเชิญท่านดร.ไกรยศพัทราวาสขึ้นสู่เวทีค่ะเรียนเชิญคุณหญิงกัสมาวรวรรณ ณ อยุธยาขึ้นสู่เวทีค่ะ
And additionally, may I kindly invite Professor Joe Hara and Ms. Arti Saiji to come up on the stage.
ขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับคณะผู้บริหารที่จะเข้าร่วมการเปิดงานในครั้งนี้ด้วยนะคะแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านคะอีกสักครู่เราจะนับถอยหลังเข้าสู่การเปิดงานอย่างเป็นทางการค่ะเชิญแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านเข้าดาวนับถอยหลังเป็นภาษาอังกฤษไปพร้อมๆกันกับการเปิดงานในปีนี้ของเรานะคะถ้าพร้อมแล้ว 5 4 3 2 1
Congratulations, and this is now ThaiCER 2026 officially grand opening.
นี่คือการเปิดงานอย่างเป็นทางการค่ะสำหรับการประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติด้านการวิจัยทางการศึกษาและขอให้ช่างภาพของเราได้เก็บภาพนาทีประวัติศาสตร์ด้านบนเวทีในวันนี้กันก่อนนะคะนี่คือเหล่าคณะผู้บริหารรวมไปถึงเหล่าภาคีและหน่วยงานที่ได้ร่วมกันขับเคลื่อนงานประชุมวิชาการนานาชาติด้านการวิจัยทางการศึกษา Thailand International Conference on Education Research 2026 ในปีนี้ค่ะขอบพระคุณทุกท่านมากๆค่ะและลำดับต่อไปค่ะขอเรียนเชิญท่านผู้บริหารกระทรวงศึกษาธิการผู้บริหารองค์กรเครือข่ายและผู้บริหารหน่วยงานที่เข้าร่วมการประชุมขึ้นด้านบนเวทีเพื่อร่วมบันทึกภาพหมู่เป็นที่ระลึกขอให้ทุกท่านยังคงอยู่ด้านบนเวทีก่อนนะคะขอเรียนเชิญผู้บริหารและผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิในโซฟาแถวหน้าทุกท่านขึ้นสู่เวทีด้านบนเลยค่ะ
So ladies and gentlemen, may we respectfully invite all of the executive from the Minister of Education, executive from the partner organizations, and distinguished guests join us on the stage for the group photograph. May I invite the executive and distinguished guests in the front row to join us on the stage.
เราจะร่วมบันทึกภาพเหล่าผู้บริหารผู้ทรงคุณวุฒินะคะและวันนี้ค่ะเรามีท่านประธานของเราค่ะที่ได้มากล่าวเปิดงานในวันนี้กับท่านรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการของเราค่ะที่ทุกท่านเห็นด้านบนเวทีนี้ค่ะคือเหล่าผู้ขับเคลื่อนด้านการวิจัยทางการศึกษาอย่างแท้จริงนะคะขอให้ช่างภาพได้บันทึกภาพจากด้านล่างก่อนนะคะ นี่คือช่วงเวลาที่พวกเราได้อยู่เป็นสักขีพยานค่ะและขอให้ท่านรัฐมนตรีและท่านเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษายังคงอยู่ด้านบนเวทีก่อนนะคะลำดับถัดไปค่ะเรียนเชิญผู้แทนหน่วยงานเจ้าภาพร่วมและผู้บริหารสำนักงานเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาขึ้นด้านบนเวทีค่ะ
So may I now invite representative of our co-host organizations and executives from the Office of Education Council to join us for the group of photo.
เรียนเชิญคณะผู้บริหารและผู้แทนหน่วยงานเจ้าภาพร่วมทุกท่านขึ้นด้านบนเวทีในเวลานี้ได้เลยนะคะเป็นช่วงเวลาที่พวกเราทุกคนได้อยู่ในการเป็นสักขีพยานของพิธีเปิดงานในปีนี้ค่ะนี่ไม่ใช่ปีแรกนะคะนั่นหมายความว่าพวกเราทุกคนได้ขับเคลื่อนนะคะการวิจัยทางการศึกษามาเป็นเวลาต่อเนื่องค่ะเชิญเจ้าภาพร่วมด้วยนะคะเดี๋ยวให้ทางเจ้าหน้าที่ช่วยจัดตำแหน่งที่ยืนด้านบนนะคะเพราะว่าเรามีผู้ที่สนับสนุนกันมากมายเหลือเกินค่ะทั้งทางพาร์ทเนอร์รวมไปถึงเจ้าภาพร่วมค่ะผู้แทนหน่วยงานต่างๆและผู้บริหารของเราค่ะที่มาร่วมกันขับเคลื่อนให้งานไทเซอร์ของเรานะคะได้จัดขึ้นอย่างต่อเนื่อง
It's now time to invite our co-hosts as well, organization and executive of the Office Education Council to join us on the stage for the photo group session.
ขอบพระคุณทุกท่านมากๆค่ะและเรียนเชิญท่านรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการท่านเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาและคณะผู้บริหารทุกท่านค่ะลงมาที่บริเวณด้านล่างเวทีเพื่อถ่ายรูปกับผู้เข้าร่วมประชุมในวันนี้นะคะเรียนเชิญท่านผู้บริหารท่านรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการท่านเลขาธิการสภาการศึกษาค่ะที่บริเวณโซฟาแถวหน้าได้เลยค่ะและเรียนเชิญผู้บริหารที่นั่งอยู่ที่โซฟาแถวหน้าทุกท่านนะคะลุกขึ้นยืนเพื่อถ่ายภาพร่วมกันกับผู้เข้าร่วมประชุมในครั้งนี้ค่ะ
Finally, may I invite the Minister and Secretary General to return to the front row for the official group photo with all of the participants.
ท่านผู้เข้าร่วมประชุมลุกขึ้นยืนทุกท่านเลยนะคะเราจะให้ช่างภาพเก็บภาพจากด้านบนเวทีเพื่อให้เห็นทุกท่านที่เข้าร่วมประชุมในวันนี้กันครบถ้วนทุกท่านค่ะเป็นเกียรติอีก1 ปีนะคะที่เราได้เจอกันกับงานไทเซอร์ 2026 ในปีนี้ค่ะซึ่งก่อนที่เราจะเข้าสู่พิธีเปิดค่ะท่านรัฐมนตรีก็ได้เยี่ยมชมพร้อมกับพูดคุยกับบูธนิทรรศการที่อยู่บริเวณด้านนอกห้องประชุมมาแล้วด้วยนะคะและแน่นอนค่ะว่าตอนนี้พิธีเปิดอย่างเป็นทางการของเราก็ได้ดำเนินการมาจนถึงการบันทึกภาพนาทีประวัติศาสตร์ในตอนนี้ค่ะและเสร็จสิ้นเป็นที่เรียบร้อยแล้วขอบพระคุณทุกท่านค่ะ
So thank you, honorable guests. We will now begin first topic. Today we will focus on different ways to help children and youth grow into capable and well-rounded and independent adults. And now pleased to invite Dr. Rangsan Vibun Upatham, education specialist, to moderate this discussion. Please join me in welcome Dr. Rangsan Vibun Upatham ครับ
ขอบพระคุณท่านรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงศึกษาธิการนะคะซึ่งท่านมีการปฏิบัติภารกิจต่อนะคะเราก็ยินดีที่วันนี้ท่านได้มาร่วมพิธีเปิดงานประชุมของเราอย่างเป็นทางการค่ะและขอบพระคุณท่านผู้บริหารและแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะนอกจากนี้เราจะเข้าสู่การประชุมในช่วงถัดไปค่ะซึ่งช่วงถัดไปเราจะนำเสนอทั้งแนวคิดและมุมมองที่หลากหลายแต่ยังคงเชื่อมโยงกันในการสนับสนุนให้กับเด็กและเยาวชนได้เติบโตเป็นบุคคลที่มีความสามารถมีความสมดุลและสามารถพึ่งพาตนเองได้อย่างยั่งยืนในโอกาสนี้ค่ะขอเรียนเชิญดร.รังสรรค์วิบูลย์อุปถัมภ์ผู้เชี่ยวชาญด้านการศึกษารับหน้าที่ดำเนินรายการในช่วงถัดไปขอเรียนเชิญค่ะและขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับท่านดร.รังสรรค์วิบูลย์อุปถัมภ์ด้วยนะคะ
Good morning, everyone. It seemed like yesterday, isn't it? I remember last year, we were here together. Part of me is very thrilled to see a lot of familiar faces, no? when I first interact with those people who come and greet me, I say like, oh my God, you're quite resilient. Aging society, aren't you? You never age a bit. And then I'm also welcome for those new faces to come to this very fruitful and productive conference, and we will see further what we'll produce out of here. Without further ado, basically, we have pack of the knowledge to share. We will start from Dr. Naomi Ledongne. She is the Senior Project Manager of OECD. And then we follow by Dr. Maja Lee V. Ravago from Simeo Innotech. We start from OECD, from this region of the Simeo Innotech. And then we shift gear a little bit to Thailand. We will present by Dr. Prasit Watanapha. He is the honorary member of Mahidol University Council. Before we adjourn for lunch, we will definitely to get a bit more inspired, because our session definitely we want to make sure that all these kind of knowledge generated in Thailand also benefit not just only to the system, but also to people in the country, especially we go deeply to those individual learners in the future, which we'll be talking by Professor Joe O'Hara. He is now the president of the World Education Research Association. First, let me actually go a little bit further, but I won't take that long, because I know that you actually want to hear definitely what is the message from our honorable keynote speaker. Let me introduce Dr. Naomi Ledongne. She is a senior manager, OECD France. We've been working together for this present year a lot, but you will hear more in very detail in terms of what, as her role as the lead the OECD work on social emotional skill and Center of Educational Research Innovation, CERI, and oversee the OECD survey on social emotional skill, which OEC will embark on this exercise pretty soon. She has an extensive expertise in international large-scale assessment, having worked for many years on the program, which I think Thailand quite familiar on PISA, right? And the Teaching and Learning International Survey. This one is TALIST. She served as a member of National Advisory Board on Equity to French Ministry of Education. Dr. Naomi has a PhD on sociology from Sciences Po Paris and graduated from the Paris Graduate School of Economic and Statistics Finance. Without further ado, may I invite Dr. Naomi on the stage. Yes. Please. She will be presenting on the social and emotional learning and skill for resilient future. Please.
Sawadika. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rongsun, for the introduction. Thank you very much to the colleagues of the OEC, Office for Education Council, and also from the Ministry of Education for their invitation. It's a great honor to be here with you today in Bangkok, joining you for a very important conference. And I'm so pleased to see that the first topic of the conference is actually social and emotional learning. This shows how important the topic has become, not only in Thailand, but at the global scale. And it's a delight for me to see this. So thank you very much for this invitation. So today I'll try to convince you that social and emotional learning is a key lever for resilient future. This presentation will include 5 parts. I will start with a brief introduction of what the OECD survey on social and emotional skills is, because I'm going to use and present a lot of the findings from this survey, which I managed for the OECD. It's a bit PISA for social emotional skills. If you know PISA, then you know SSES. SSES is the shorthand for the survey on social and emotional skills. And then I'll present some findings on from the survey. So I'll first try to convince you that social and emotional skills predict key life outcomes, presenting some evidence from the survey, and then also showing that once we know that these skills matter, that I also have some bad news somehow, that these skills are inequitably distributed among students, depending on their gender, depending on their socioeconomic background, and so on. And then I'll show some evidence regarding how social emotional skills can be taught and can be developed through school-based intervention. Then I'll conclude with some final directions that we're taking for the survey on social and emotional skills. So a brief introduction to this OECD survey on social and emotional skills. So what is it in a nutshell? This is going to be the main source of this presentation, so it's important that you keep the key parameters of this survey in mind. So this survey is the world's first and largest system-level survey of social and emotional skills. In the survey, we target 15-year-old students, just as we do in PISA, but optionally in this survey, we also assess 10-year-old students, which is very interesting because we can compare the skill levels of 10 and 15-year-olds. And we also ask a lot of questions to their teachers, to their parents. That's an option in the survey, and to the school leaders. Just as PISA is periodic, SSES is also periodic. So we had the first round. The first data collection took place in 2019, the second one in 2023. And the third one will take place later this year in 2026. And I'm so delighted to share that Thailand will participate in the survey for the first time, thanks to the great cooperation with colleagues from the Office of Education Council and the Ministry. So in the survey, we assess 15 different skills from students. You can see them on this slide on the right-hand side. I'll start with the intrapersonal skills. So there are two sets of intrapersonal skills. The one in red, task performance, is one domain, which encompasses skills such as persistence, achievement motivation, responsibility, self-control. These are important skills to stay focused on tasks, to overcome challenges, to persist in face of obstacles, and so on. Also to manage distractions and stay focused. So very important for academic success. And then the other domain of intrapersonal skills are the skills in yellow, emotional regulation. So here you have skills such as emotional control, stress resistance, optimism. These skills are very important to maintain a good health and healthy behaviors, as we will see later in the presentation. And then there are two domains of social skills, interpersonal skills. So these are the domains in blue, engaging with others. This has to do with the capacity to establish new relationships. So this requires being a bit assertive, being sociable. So it has to do more with the quantity of relationships that someone can establish. And then in green, you have a set of social skills that pertain to the quality of those relationships. You need to be able to collaborate, to be empathic with your peers, for instance, with your children if you are parents, with your students if you are a teacher, so that they can perform correctly and also thrive in life. And then the last domain, the one in gray, open-mindedness, is about skills for the world, to engage with new ideas, to learn new things, to develop new concepts and so on, new ways of solving problems. So these are skills such as curiosity, creativity, and tolerance. So keep those skills in mind because I'm gonna present findings on those skills in the rest of the presentation. The survey on social emotional skills is a global initiative, and my presentation will focus on data that is available, so from the past 2 rounds that took place in 2019 and 2023. And you can see all the education systems that took part in the survey so far. And we have more in 2026. I mentioned already Thailand will participate. In South Asia, maybe Southeast Asia may be more relevant to you in Thailand. We had, for instance, Delhi in India, Kudus in Indonesia, and also in the rest of Asia, we had 2 provinces in China, Gunma Prefecture in Japan, and Daegu in Korea. So keep those in mind, and you can look for the findings of these Asian education systems on the next slides. Before I move to the next sections, I'll want to share a little bit about our theory of change. What do we try to achieve with this survey? Why do we offer this survey to education systems, to countries? The first thing is that the survey does is to assess student social emotional skills, but also to identify student strengths in terms of social emotional skills, but also needs they have in terms of learning. And then we also shed light on equity gaps. And we also offer interesting comparisons, international comparisons. You can see a neighboring country that maybe does better in one dimension. You can get inspired from their practices and policies. And we also, for those participating systems that participate several times, it's also possible to look at trends over time. So that's what the survey does. But then we work together with countries and education systems to raise awareness about the importance of those skills so that teachers, school leaders try to address those skills in their classrooms, in their schools, and develop those skills in their students. And then the data can be used to also inform the design of new policies and practices. So we work closely with countries to help them achieve that. And ultimately, of course, you can see the right-hand side of the slide, the goal is really to improve students' outcomes, academic outcomes, job outcomes, health outcomes, but also outcomes at the society level. So cohesion of the society and resilience. So let's start with some findings. First, you're going to see in the next slides that social emotional skills predict key life outcomes, starting with academic success. So what we did in the survey is that we also collected school grades, the average grade that students got in school in the last year or in the last semester. And then we looked at how these grades are related to their skills. And what we found, so we collected grades in math, blue bars, reading and art. Reading is in red and arts in light blue. And you can see here on this chart the relationship between the level of each of the skills that are listed horizontally and the grades that students got. And you can see that the more students are persistent, curious, responsible, in control of their emotions, the better they perform in math, in reading, and in arts. So the skills that matter the most for achievement for academic success are the skills in the domain of task performance, the intrapersonal skills, plus curiosity. You need to be able to stay focused on task, again, to cope with challenges when you face them while solving a math issue, a math problem, when reading a long document, you need to be persistent, to remain focused and so on, but you also need to have this love of learning. So you need to develop curiosity in your students. I'm going to zoom now on these 5 skills that were at the top, on the left-hand side, that are predictive of academic success. And you can see that they matter for all groups of students, be it 15-year-olds, 10-year-old students, advantaged students, disadvantaged students, girls, boys. We see a similar strength. So increasing the levels of these skills in the students will increase their academic performance, irrespective of their gender and their socioeconomic background. Very important finding, I think. And we also saw that these relationships, all for all education systems. But in some systems, these relationships were stronger, meaning that maybe social emotional learning is more important, is a bigger lever in some countries than in others. We were quite interested in seeing that in Delhi, in India, we could see the potential of social and emotional learning, because the more, the higher the level of these skills, the more successful students are at school. It was also the case in Japan, but you can see the strength of the relationships is a bit weaker. So this it's still difficult, I would say, to explain those differences, but it's interesting to observe them. The key message still remains that these skills matter for academic success everywhere. These skills also matter for academic and job aspirations. Here, first, let's start with some very simple descriptive statistics. You can see the percentage of students who aspire to complete tertiary education at the age of 15. And these are the dark bar, and you can see on average across, the different sites, we have more than 80% of students that expect to complete tertiary education. They are very ambitious in general, those students. And we also have like around 60% of them that expect to have a managerial or professional career. So they are very ambitious. That's quite interesting to see. But also we see that students who are more curious also tend to have higher expectations. And also those who are more tolerant and more persistent also tend to have higher expectations. So if you develop curiosity in your students, they also develop higher aspirations for their career, for their life. What was also interesting is that we asked students what job they expect to have at the age of 30. And those who said they expect to have a job in science, in IT, in engineering, also tend to report higher levels of curiosity and creativity. And you would say with me, I guess, that these skills are important for this sector. And likewise, students who are expected to become a doctor, a nurse, reported higher levels of not only curiosity, but also persistence, responsibility, empathy. And you will admit with me that these skills are also important for a career in health, to be empathetic in particular and responsible. And again, that creativity, optimism, assertiveness, energy are also important skills if you want to start a business. So students align their career expectations with the skills they perceive they have. So important also to shape those skills if we want also to shape a different, job market in the future. If we want to be an entrepreneurial society, then maybe you need to invest in creativity, communication skills, and so on. These skills are not only important for academic success and job performance, but also, and job aspirations, but also for health. Here you can see that skills, particularly in the domain of emotional regulation, so intrapersonal skills, the capacity to acknowledge and manage your emotions, are very important for your health. There are students who have higher levels of those skills also tend to behave more healthier. They have healthier behaviors, so they practice more often, they eat vegetables more often, they sleep longer hours, they don't smoke, they don't drink alcohol, and so on. They are at the age of 15, so they should not, of course, but they also report higher psychological well-being. So developing those skills, especially the intrapersonal skills, are very important to develop a good health in your students. These were the findings from the survey on social emotional skills on this aspect, but we also have some findings in other surveys. PISA also found a positive relationship between some of the skills we assess in SSES and students' use of effective learning strategies at the age of 15, and also in our survey of adult skills, it's called PIAC. We found that social emotional skills of adults are also related to their educational attainments, their cognitive proficiency when they're adults. I'll move on to the second part of this presentation. Now that we know that these skills matter for a range of life outcomes, let's look at how they are distributed among different groups of students. And here you can see the difference between the level of skills of disadvantaged students and advantaged students. And you can see the bars are all negative, showing like that disadvantaged students have lower levels of each single skill. So there was not a single skill where we could see equal level of those skills among students from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So there is a socioeconomic gap for every skill, especially for the skill of creativity, tolerance, assertiveness, curiosity. So usually for the skills that are in the domain of open-mindedness, we see larger gaps between disadvantaged and advantaged students. So we really need to do something to close these gaps. And then we also saw some differences between girls and boys. Boys report lower levels of social skills, empathy, and tolerance, while girls report lower levels of emotional skills. So skills such as emotional control and stress resistance. So they have different strengths and weaknesses. We need to be aware of that. Teachers in their classrooms need to be aware of that to develop social skills in the boys and emotional skills in the girls. The size of these gender gaps vary across countries. Good news for Asian countries, I would say. They are smaller in Asia than in the other countries. They were particularly large in Europe, actually, in Finland and Italy. This is where at least boys perceive themselves and girls perceive themselves as weaker in on some dimensions. So the gaps were larger. What is particularly striking, actually, is more the fact that these gaps, they widen as students get older, especially at the disadvantage of girls. So remember, we surveyed 10-year-old students and 15-year-old students. And when you look at girls, you can see that there is already a gender gap in favor of boys when it comes to stress resistance and emotional control. But at the age of 10, it's still a bit small. At the age of 15, it's really large. So there is something happening during adolescence, and girls report that they struggle with managing their emotions. So we need to be particularly attentive to the girls during adolescence. I'm coming to the third part of this presentation, showing some insights about how social and emotional skills can be taught in schools and classrooms. And first of all, what does the research tell us about this? Because this is relatively new and emerging research. I have a couple of slides summarizing the evidence on this. So in my team, we reviewed 74 school-based interventions. We looked at the impact of those interventions and they were from various areas in the world. We looked specifically at meta-analysis and systematic reviews of these interventions, and they consistently demonstrate that social and emotional skills can be taught in school settings across different age groups and also across different national contexts. And you can see at the bottom of the table, not only the predictive value of the skills of self-control that is predictive of many different skills, many different outcomes, but also highly teachable. And the same is true for social problem solving, empathy, assertiveness, cooperation. So we found a lot of evidence showing that these skills can be taught. Now let's look at what we found in the survey on social emotional skills. We first have a vision of teachers and schools, teachers as social emotional learning professionals, and schools as hubs for social emotional learning. And so here is our vision. It starts with preparedness of teachers. Of course, yes, teachers need to be trained to develop social emotional learning in their students. They also need to work in supportive environments so that there is a shared mindset in the school among the teachers, with the school leader, that social emotional learning is important. They need to be, skilled and knowledgeable about those skills. So we need, again, to teach them, but they also need to be able to put that in practice. And of course, yes, the teaching part. They need to be able to promote social emotional skills as they teach their main subject. Let's have a look at teachers' preparedness for social emotional learning. And on this slide, you can see the share of teachers who have not been trained in social emotional learning. And you can see that on average, 30% of teachers from across the different education systems that participated in the survey, 30% of teachers were not trained in 2023 to incorporate social and emotional learning in their classroom and in their teaching. And this is in comparison to being trained with, typical classroom practice, pedagogy, which is a very limited share, less than 10% on average. So there is still a significant percentage of teachers not being trained for this. And I have a few slides then about supporting work environments, showing that indeed school environments can make a difference. We found in the survey on social emotional skills that students who feel they belong to the school, they tend to have more positive, they tend to report higher social emotional skills and better emotional regulation, in particular better sociability skills, optimism, energy, and trust. So meaning that developing this feeling of belonging in school is very important to develop high levels of those skills. Also, the quality of the relationship matters a lot. And so teachers who interact a lot with students, who have positive relationships with students, also foster the development of those skills. You can see in particular that having good teacher-student relationships is particularly good for skills such as achievement, motivation, curiosity, persistence, and so on. And also having positive peer-to-peer relationships, so student-to-student relationships, is particularly important for trust and social skills in general, but also intrapersonal skills. So very important to cultivate positive relationships in the school. Another way you can develop social emotional skills in your students is to offer extracurricular activities, because we know that there is a positive relationship between participating in these activities and developing higher levels of those skills, especially for skills such as assertiveness, creativity, sociability, curiosity. So it developed both like open-mindedness, being open to new ideas, but also social skills. So very interesting option for schools if they want to develop social emotional skills in their students to offer these extracurricular activities. It's also very important that there is a shared mindset in the school around the value of social emotional skills and social emotional learning. What we found in our survey is that less than half of students across the participating systems attend schools with a shared mindset. So where all teachers and the school leader agree that social emotional skills are important for youth employment and economic success. So this is this is still a statistic that I would like to see increase over time as people become more and more aware of the importance of those skills. And finally, it's very important to provide opportunities to students to develop social emotional skills in lessons. And we can see that actually 10-year-old students have more opportunities to develop those skills than 15-year-old students. You can see there is always a significant difference between the frequency they have opportunities to develop those skills. And so, of course, this is probably a stronger focus in primary schools to develop those skills in students, but actually, we know that through adolescence, students go through a very disrupted period, and it's very important to support them still at the age of 15. So I would also encourage you to consider the possibility to keep the focus on social emotional skills still at the age of 15. An interesting lever we also identified thanks to the findings from the survey on social emotional skills is teacher feedback. The more teachers give feedback to their students, the higher the skills of those students. So you can see here that when the frequency of feedback given by teachers to the students is higher, then students tend to be more motivated, more optimistic, more sociable, more persistent, more curious, more creative. I think this is important to recognize that it's important to give feedback on what to improve, how to improve, but also to give positive feedback to students, because it's very informative for the students to know what they are good at. It's good. It's very important information for building their career aspirations, for shaping their goals for the future, and it's also creating a very trustful relationship with the teacher. So I think all this creates a virtuous circle. And you can see on this slide that the share of teachers providing positive and also negative feedback is still low. So there is still room to improve on this and to motivate teachers to give not only negative feedback on what to improve, what are the weaknesses, but also positive feedback on what the student does very well. So in summary, for these three parts, where I showed some evidence from the survey on social emotional skills survey, we found that social emotional skills predict key life outcomes, but they are inequitably distributed between student groups. We saw that disadvantaged students always have lower levels of every social emotional skill, and also girls in particular struggle with emotional skills. And then we can also see that schools and teachers can make a difference and develop those skills through targeted interventions and regular teaching practice. I would like to conclude with a few slides about the future directions we are taking for the survey, especially that Thailand will be participating in the next round. We are updating a little bit our framework. And instead of having these 5 different domains, we have combined them into 3 main domains with the intrapersonal skills, interpersonal skills, and open-mindedness skills. And for the first time, we're including a new direct assessment of empathy. Until now, all the findings relied on self-reports from students, but also other reports from teachers and parents who were also asked to rate the skills of the children. And so that's a big innovation. We are very excited to introduce this new direct assessment of empathy. And there will also be new topics. We'll have a closer look at students' digital habits and use of generative AI, and we'll relate that to their social emotional skill levels. We're going to have a short self-assessment of a teacher's social emotional skills. It's very important to have the skills yourself to be able to develop them in your students, of course. So we're going to check how teachers perceive their own skills. There will be also a closer focus on bullying, important adults at school, as this is an important also lever to develop social emotional skills. There will be also more questions on career aspirations and perceptions, a new section on civic behaviors, and also community belonging and more. So I'm very excited to see the results for Thailand in a year from now. And as I said, yes, Thailand will be participating in SSES 2026. And we will have a total of 35 education systems having participated in the survey. So there will be many different systems to compare Thailand with. It's going to be very exciting to see the results. And until then, until the end of 2027, where we will release our first international report, I invite you to read our other reports from the previous rounds and also working papers. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Naomi, for get us to be more thorough on the education system improvement. And you can see that when we start talking about social emotional learning, we are not talking only those students, but also teachers are also in focus. No? And you will hear more. I believe that in this conference, we will address all kinds of stakeholders. No? I will keep the question from the audience, and also I believe that we have some more questions also toward the end, because we kind of have a pack of the keynote speaker. No? So for the next one, we will move on, because I think in the last point that Naomi mentioned, you also touched on the technology. No? In this region, the legitimate organization that who are really good who could actually talk through us, not enlighten us in terms of technology. I think we need to look into Simeo Innotech. No? For those teachers in this region, I think they know pretty well. No? The next topic will be about investing in the future AI, innovation and human capital for resilience, will be presented by Dr. Maja Lee Ravago. No? But before we start, let me give just a few information about Dr. Ravigo. No? First of all, thank you so much for coming, because we've been in touch back and forth a lot. I know your schedule is quite busy. No? I can speak on behalf of the OEC that we really appreciate you make the time to come here. They actually come by herself, and I can tell you, no, for this keynote speaker, there is no honorarium at all. No, they come because of they want to contribute to Thailand education system improvement and also in this region. Dr. Maja Ravigo is the economist, educator, and also internationally recognized as a policy expert. Served as the 10th Center Director of Chief Executive Office of the Simeo Innotech, as I mentioned. No? So, and this, we probably aware that this Simeo Innotech is actually a branch of Simeo, which has the office next to UNESCO office in Thailand. No? Besides being a director, she is also a professor of economics on Ateneo de Manila University. No? He has more than 2 decades of experience spanning academia, governance, and also international development. Dr. Ravigo earned her PhD in economics from University of Hawaii, Manoa, and recently completed the executive leadership program on AI and productivity and InState. I think we probably will get to hear more also how InState talking about the AI. No? She is strong advocate for harnessing the innovation, artificial intelligence, and human capital development to build more resilient, inclusive, and future-ready education system across Southeast Asia. I think she is the right person to talk about the AI improvement and the movement in this conference. No? Please join me to welcome Dr. Maja Raviko to talk about investing in the future AI innovation and human capital for resilience, please.
Good morning. Sawadika. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Education for the invitation. Of course, the Minister Praset Jantara Rungtong and Sec Gen Prawit Erawan. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the Ministry of Education for the support to SIMU Innotech through our governing board member, the Permanent Secretary Sutep Kaseng Santia, who was represented by Ms. Kusuma in last year's governing board meeting of SIMU Innotech. And of course, I'd like to thank also the ministry for lending us Ms. Kochakuan Katapat Asidre, who served as my deputy and is now back here at the Ministry of Education. Today, I would like to talk about this topic, investing in the future, AI innovation and human capital for resilient education. They are not separate issues, but part of a challenge, of the development challenge. AI is already entering schools, universities, home, work. So the question is no longer whether we are adopting AI. The question really is how do we shape the use so that it genuinely improves learning, strengthens resilience, advances equity, supports sustainable development. So let me begin with this central, okay. It's not moving. Okay, let me begin with this central question. Under what conditions can AI strengthen education, resilience, and human capital equitably and sustainably? I'd like to offer this answer. AI can strengthen education, resilience, and human capital, but its benefits will depend on teacher capacity, effective governance, equitable access, and sustainable infrastructure. These are not concerns that we can address later, after the technology has been introduced. They shape the results from the very beginning. So I do not want to frame the question as whether AI is good or bad. The real question is whether our education systems have the people, institutions, and safeguards needed to use it well. Why is this fundamentally a development question? So let me begin with this framework, an economist framework. Education builds human capital. So let me focus on this. Education builds on human capital, the knowledge, skills, and health and capabilities that enable people to participate productively in the economy and the society. So going up, stronger human capital raises productivity and supports innovation. These gains, in turn, can create more resources to education infrastructure and public services. So there is a reinforcing loop. Technology can strengthen this cycle. So technology like AI, but it does not do it automatically. AI may increase productivity and change the skills in the labor, but its effect will always be shaped by this enabling institution, the one at the bottom, the enabling condition, which are domestic policies and regulation, institutional fabric, and external environment. So the question is, this especially matters in Southeast Asia, where countries are progressing from very different starting points. So as we can see here on the slide, the yellow and red circles are actually the GDP per capita, and the bars are human capital. So across Southeast Asia, countries enter the era of AI with different levels of income. So with this different level of incomes, education quality also varies. Connectivity, innovation capacity, and institutional readiness. You can see Thailand in the middle. Thailand has a relatively strong education and health outcomes and an important base on which to build. So that is really good news for Thailand, even though you have experienced modest growth recently. But across the region in Southeast Asia, many systems still face basic constraint in access. Those are at the lower end of the spectrum, the CLMT. So constraint in access, quality, infrastructure, and teacher support. This means that the same AI tool for these countries in Southeast Asia will not produce the same result because they are starting at different initial conditions. Or even within country, AI will not result the same for every schools. The system surrounding the technology matters a lot. So let us look more closely for Thailand, the foundation for Thailand. So Thailand enters the period of AI, the era of AI with a meaningful innovation foundation. So this graph here represents expected innovation performance of countries versus its GDP per capita. If you're along the line, then your innovation performance is as expected. Comparing Thailand with other Southeast Asian countries, Thailand is actually doing better. So Thailand ranked 45th in the 2025 Global Innovation Index with strong ICT use and a substantial share of science and engineering graduates. So good news for Thailand. At the same time, the number of researchers per million people points to an area where capacity is deepening. I would not read these figures as simply as ranking. They show both Thailand's readiness and its next investment frontier, building research capability, translating skills into innovation, and ensuring that digital development creates broad social value. A strong innovation base creates opportunity. So let's remember that. It's create opportunity, but it does not automatically create better learning. And AI is not simply another digital tool. It changes where analysis and judgment takes place. AI is different from the technology that we used to know, the internet, those Google searches. This previous technology, we as humans are involved in the analysis. But AI now, recommendation is also automated. And AI automates the analysis and it changes the decision point. So humans are not necessarily included in the center, but maybe at the end. So it matters. So we can already see these possibilities taking shape in Thai education system. So here, the graph, the slide shows that AI applications now span the learning cycle in Thailand. And this is also true in other countries in Southeast Asia. From early childhood and basic education to universities, technical and vocational education, the workforce, and lifelong learning. I will not go through each of these initiatives. You probably know this better. But of course, the broad issues highlighted in this are personalized learning, support for teaching and assessment, teacher development, and administrative work, and reskilling for a changing labor market. So changes in the labor market are not only seen here in Thailand, but also across countries in Southeast Asia. Programs such as Chula Genie, TIOSA, Thai Academy, Thai LLM, and Abdul Uni show that Thailand already has an active ecosystem having this AI. Adoption here in Thailand is no longer hypothetical based on these examples. The policy challenge now is to connect these experiments, still on the experimental stage. How do we now connect this to evidence? Are there already studies analyzing or examining the impact of these experiments? What are the professional practice and connect it to system-wide safeguards? This is becoming urgent because AI, which is very dynamic and evolving very fast, is also shaping the work. So here, it's shaping skills demand and the future of work. The economic stakes are substantial, as we can see. AI's potential contribution to the global economy is measured in trillions of dollars, and organizational use has risen rapidly. For Thailand stands to gain significantly, potentially. Okay? But I want to be careful with the jobs figure shown here. The projected net gain of 78 million jobs by 2030 reflects wider labor market transformations and not AI alone. Because with the introduction of AI, there will be a lot of transformation in the labor market. But what can we say confidently is that the task and skills requirement are already changing. So the figure here on your right is really a figure coming from the LinkedIn professional social platform. It's not representative, but it's already an indication that there is a demand for talent with AI skills. And this is not just in Thailand, but across Southeast Asia. So, economic potential is only one side of the story. AI offers opportunities. It can reduce administrative burdens, especially in schools, support more personalized learning, improve the use of data, and widen access to interactive resources. But at the same time, there are challenges and risks. It amplifies bias. It can also amplify inequality, expose sensitive data, weaken academic integrity, and create environmental costs. I see this not as two separate stories, but not one optimistic and not one pessimistic, but as different outcomes of the same technology under different conditions. Again, it will be the initial conditions, the enabling conditions that will matter. So this is why responsible AI readiness is a governance, leadership, and capacity challenge, not simply a technology rollout in every country. The practical task is to capture educational value while deliberately managing the risk. And these opportunities and risks that are shown here are already visible in how students are using AI. Focusing again on Thailand, we know that students are actually using AI more than the teachers. And this is not only true for Thailand because of the generational gap. That learners, the children, are probably Gen Alpha or Gen Z. So that generational gap, they are digital native. Whereas the teachers that we have today are probably Gen X or millennials. And we did not grow up, with all this digital technology. So the slides show that Thai students are already frequent users of AI. These tools can personalize support and help remove barriers for learners with disabilities. But high uptake does not mean equal benefit. Devices, connectivity, appropriate content inside the AI, and guidance remain uneven, even within country, much more so across countries in Southeast Asia. So we must ask more than how many students use AI. What we should ask is it improving learning? Is it showing in learning outcomes? And who is still left behind? Adoption is only an input. Equitable learning is the outcome that matters. So now let's look at what's happening on the teacher side. So in Thailand, again, many Thai teachers, they are already using generative AI to prepare learning materials. But as I've said, there are more students using AI than teachers. Some of the teachers in Thailand can already use AI to handle administrative tasks, give feedback, engage students, and discuss responsible use. This initiative is encouraging, especially for Thailand, but high individual adoption does not necessarily indicate high institutional readiness. Perhaps this adoption is concentrated only in several provinces, but not all provinces in Thailand. Teachers may still lack systematic training, clear school-level guidance, ethical framework, and practical implementation support. But nonetheless, we also need to encourage teachers to experiment on the use of this technology because how else will they learn? The teachers also have valid concerns about students becoming overly independent on AI. It's not only teachers. When I go around the Philippines explaining the use of AI and advocating the use of AI, the media themselves, who are parents themselves, are also concerned about the use of AI. So it's not only true for Thailand, but in other countries as well. So teachers are not merely users of technology. They are professional decision makers who understand their learners and their context. They determine whether a tool genuinely improves learning. Our investment should therefore strengthen teacher agency. So the importance is that we also build the capacity of our teacher, especially with embracing and using this new technology and not bypass it and left the technology with our teachers. So with that, what then does the emerging evidence tell us about the results? So there are already studies looking at the impact of AI, but it's not yet conclusive. This study suggests a cautious, constructive conclusion. So we have here example from Israel, Thailand, and the Philippines. In Israel, personalized learning has improved with the use of AI, but teacher mediation remained essential, meaning to say there has to be teacher supervision when students are using AI. Here in Thailand, Thailand's Smart Classroom pilot shows that tools and infrastructure need training and professional support. In the Philippines, computer-assisted instruction improved mathematics outcome, but not in English. So there is that differentiation. The distinction is important. Adoption is growing. Efficiency evidence is emerging, and learning evidence remains limited and still context-dependent. Again, AI has just been introduced. Well, as we know it, AI has already been there in the 60s and 70s, but it has gone rapidly in the last 2 years. So it's entering the schools, and the education is relatively new, and hence the evidence is still relatively new. But from this evidence, 3 principles already stand out for our policy makers. First, human oversight is still essential. Okay, AI should support human judgment, not replace it. And accountability is also very important. Accountability must remain with people and institutions, particularly, of course, with the Ministry of Education. Second, AI is not neutral. Models reflect their data because AI feeds from the data we feed AI. Design choices, cultural assumptions, especially in Southeast Asia, well, it's culturally sensitive, and the objectives for which these AI are built. Third, governance must come before scale. Governance cannot eliminate every risk, but it can support safer and more responsible use. So very important as the technology rollout is the concomitant governance, trusting in the technology. In education, where decisions affect children, learning pathways, and lifelong opportunities, the burden of care must especially be high. We must also recognize that AI is not spreading evenly. So we see here an uneven diffusion and system constraints. The data is shown from the 2025, the change from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. And we see a big change already across Southeast Asia. Connectivity gaps remain significant, particularly between rural and urban communities. So it's not only in Thailand, but the rest of Southeast Asia. Many teachers still have limited access to digital training. There's also energy constraints. Here, electricity is subsidized, but in the Philippines, electricity is not subsidized, and electricity prices in the Philippines is one of the highest in the region. There's also language, even within country, the local dialects. It may not be in the AI, and therefore the knowledge, and learnings from local may not be captured. There's also cultural diversity that further shape what can work in practice in using AI. This is why AI's impact is always context-specific. So it may also be different within country. If access to capable tools follows existing inequalities in income, geography, language, gender, or disability, an AI divide can quickly a learning divide. So that is something that we should all watch out for. A resilient education system must continue to serve learners under equal and changing conditions. It cannot assume that one platform or one model will work for everyone. The risks make legal and ethical governance indispensable. So here, we can see that Thailand, these are examples from Thailand again. Thailand is moving from broad AI principles toward operational guardrails. I would group these challenges into 3 areas: fairness, fairness because efficiency-driven systems may widen gaps. The second is bias because limited participation and gaps in local data can distort results. So there is that gap that we are seeing. Data security and vendor accountability because student records and institutional materials may be exposed. because we are dealing with the education sector. So Thailand has this strategy of guidance, assessment tools, data protection law, and red teaming efforts. These are all point to the very good direction. The next challenge for Thailand is consistent implementation and enforceable accountability. I don't know, but as in the Philippines or in any other countries, we have well-intentioned law, but the devil is in the implementation of this well-intentioned law. So responsible AI, however, is not only about this ethics, privacy, fairness, it is also about sustainability. So let me offer again an economist view. An economist asks whether a decision reflects the full social cost of a technology, not only the price paid by the immediate user. So everything has a price. You see here the benefits and costs of the use of AI. AI can generate productivity, as we've said earlier, and learning benefits. But it also consumes electricity, water, materials, land, public infrastructure. For those of you following the literature, you may already have heard about the controversy surrounding the building of data centers in the US, and it's now going to Southeast Asia. You may have heard about the Pax Silica coming here in Southeast Asia. So sustainability requires us to look across the full life cycle of this technology. What are the benefits? What are the total costs? Who receive the benefits and who bears the cost? And what incentives can encourage more efficient and responsible choices? So you see here the benefits and the costs. You may have heard about the Nike, right? Nike principle. There is also the Nike principle, the Nike environmental principle of just doing it as long as the benefits exceed the cost. We cannot do something where the costs exceed the benefits. So responsible AI is not just about ethics, privacy, and fairness. It is also about resources required to build and sustain it. So global data center electricity use could potentially use up about 945 terawatt hours by 2030. And in Southeast Asia, demand may more than double. Thailand's promoted projects already imply substantial electricity needs, and electricity is only one part of the footprint. As I've said, when building data centers, you need water for the cooling effect. So that's why water is also very important. Hardware, materials, storage, and eventually e-waste management in using this technology. The implication, of course, is not to reject AI, but to stop treating computing as resource-free and reward efficient low-carbon deployment. Again, just do it as long as the benefits exceed the cost. So Thailand offers an important example of how infrastructure policy can evolve. So we see here several examples from Thailand. Thailand is already beginning to shift from attracting largest quantity of data center investment toward improving the quality of Thai investment. Thailand, Singapore are actually ahead in terms of building data centers, where our other countries like the Philippines are just contemplating now. It's naturally because Thailand has relatively lower electricity costs because it's subsidized. Direct power purchase agreements and green electricity tariffs can connect digital growth with cleaner energy. Stronger financial and regulatory measures can encourage credible investors and better performance. Energy and water readiness, environmental protection, tangible benefits to the Thai economy are becoming more important criteria. The wider lesson for education is that digital expansion cannot be planned in isolation. You cannot treat it as a vacuum. It must be planned together with energy, water, infrastructure, and of course, towards national development. Infrastructure is one part of readiness. Let us now place Thailand, again in the regional context of readiness. Again, good news for Thailand. The government AI Readiness Index shows high regional potential, but still across Southeast Asia, diverse level of preparedness. Thailand is up there, is among the Southeast Asia's stronger performance, while governance gap remain across the region. So we should be interpreting this index carefully. It measures government capacity, the readiness of the government, meaning policies are already in place, not necessarily that the education system is ready. So it's government readiness index. Education needs additional safeguard because we are dealing with children and large data set, and because we're dealing with children, learners, data are sensitive, its decisions are high stakes, and effects on equity can last a lifetime. For this reason, education must meet a higher standard of readiness. Again, education system holds large amount of sensitive data, information about children, information about our teachers. They make decisions that can affect learning pathways and future opportunities. And they operate across many layers, from classroom and schools to regional offices and national ministries like the MOE. Readiness must therefore combine clear system direction, secure infrastructure and data, effective governance, capable people, and strong equity safeguards. In practical terms, this means connectivity must be trustworthy, there should be clear policies and institutional capacity. So the question is, how can we organize all these conditions? Again, let me go back to the framework that I showed earlier, the enabling environment that would determine the pathways. So I suggest looking at these three conditions: the rules and safeguards for responsible use, domestic policy and regulation, institutional policies, and the external environment. These dimensions must work together. Good policy without implementation capacity remains on paper. Again, this is a common disease among Southeast Asian countries. We have well-intentioned policies, but the devil is in the implementation, consistency of applying these rules, having credible policy environment. Strong institutions without clear rules move inconsistently, and national choices are inevitably shaped by global platforms, supply chain investment, and standards. In Thailand, we see already these elements across these three dimensions, and these are some examples. Thailand's AI strategy and education policies provide direction, including reducing teachers' administrative workload and supporting competency-based learning. Thai Academy and related initiatives are building literacy and learning pathways. The challenge, again, is translation, cross-agency coordination. This is not just a challenge in Thailand. In my country, in the Philippines, cross-agency coordination is also a big challenge. Because if there's no coordination, it can slow school-level implementations, while global technologies and data flows shape cost and choice. The priority is coherence, from national strategy to institutional responsibility down to the classroom. Again, coordination, organization is a challenge not only for Thailand, but the rest of Southeast Asian countries. Regional cooperation in Southeast Asia, ASEAN, can help countries turn these principles into practice, not only in AI, but also in other aspects. So what is the role of CMU Innotech? At CMU Innotech, we work with the Ministries of Education, of course, with the Ministries of Education in Thailand, in Southeast Asia, to support responsible and inclusive innovation. We have this initiative. We are co-developing and co-creating the regional framework on AI in education. Our representatives from the Ministries of Thailand came to the Philippines to help in the first workshop, and we are now ready to roll out the survey. So I'm calling again for the cooperation of the Ministries of Education, even the school leaders, in participating in the survey that we will roll out in the next couple of months. We also have what we call the Innovator Seal and the InnoTeach. The Innovator Seal focuses on the school leaders, and this is our already enhanced school leadership program. And we have participants from the Ministries of Education of Thailand, 2 participants every year. And this program is actually a commitment of the Philippine government that we hope the school leaders will cascade to the schools and also to the Ministries of Education. The other initiative that we have is what we call InnoTeach, focusing on the teacher leaders. Again, we have enhanced this initiative, this capacity building, to include digital training and AI. And for the community of ThaiCER, because again, AI is relatively new, and this is for the education leaders, for the universities, let us do more research so that we can link these experiments into evidence. So I'm posing here some of the questions that we can do. Does AI improve learning, and for whom? Average results may hide who benefits and who is left behind. So we also need to look deeper as a form of, maybe as a case studies. Second, how does teacher mediation improves learning? What new inequities could AI create or reinforce? As I've said, an AI divide can be a learning divide. Which governance and infrastructure models are effective and sustainable? So these are some of the few questions that researchers here in this room can work with the policymaker so that the AI experimentation can be linked to evidence and inform better policies. So let me close with this. AI's contribution to resilient education and will ultimately be determined by the quality of the systems, institutions, and people surrounding it. So you are one of the people surrounding this AI, and you will be the one shaping the outcomes to our learners. So if we invest only in tools, we may achieve adoption without learning, efficiency without equity, and innovation without trust. But if we invest in people, build trustworthy governance of this technology, and design infrastructure for resilience and sustainability, AI can help education systems become more adaptive, inclusive, and responsive. The future will not be determined by the technology alone. It will be shaped by the choices we make today about capacity, accountability, evidence, and most importantly, who the system is designed to serve. So with that, I would like to thank everyone, and I hope to continue with the engagement later on. Konkop ka.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marjali Wako, the director from Simeo Innotech. Thank you, and I'm sorry for rushing you. I think the presentation is more like an AI presentation, right? The light speed, no? Yes, but anyway, later on, all this information, Education Council we put into proceeding after a month time, I believe, no, you can also come back. And even right now, you are on YouTube, and make sure that you actually have, look presentable face as well. Because when they actually pan the camera to you, so you can wave your hand and then say hi to your colleague from home. No? So thank you, Dr. Raviko. I think your homework is very impressive. I'm glad to hear a lot of active Thai participants at the regional, no? And then especially on this topic. And that's actually make very kind of headache to Naomi perhaps. In a few years later, when you come back, are you expecting you talk about Thailand like this? Kidding. So without further ado, I would like to also lead you to the next presentation. Will be presented by Professor Emeritus Dr. Prasit Wattanapha. He is honorary member of Mahidol University Council. He will be talking about the essential future skill and competency of strategic focus. No? Let me give you a little bit of himself, who he is. Okay. Dr. Prasit Wattanapha, he is honorary member of Mahidol University, as I mentioned, and a distinguished medical educator and healthcare leader in Thailand. He is currently served as a chairperson of the Medical Council Subcommittee on Medical Genetic and Genomic Medicine and a chairperson of the Healthcare Accreditation Institute. He was appointed as Professor Emeritus at Faculty of Medicine, Sirik Raj Hospital, Mahidol University. Throughout this distinguished career, he received quite a number of honorable awards, including Princess Health Award 2021, People Management Award, the Best of CEO People Leader 2022, and last but not the least, he also received Leadership Excellence Award 2024. To shift gear a little bit, Dr. Mr. Pasit, he is right now on some of also taking care of his mind well-being, but he kindly enough to share with us what he is being recorded. No? So please enjoy, sit back, relax.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the organizing committee for allowing me to come to do this presentation. But unfortunately, I would like to apologize for not being able to do this presentation in person. I would like to share my slide to show you how we develop the so-called essential future skill of Thailand and how we implement this in order to share and learn our experience with all of you. You are welcome to give some comments. And if you do have some questions, please forward those questions to my team. I have to go to join the meditation course during the 1st to the 8th of August. But as soon as when I come back, I will try to respond to those questions probably by email or whatever. What I'm going to do during this half an hour presentation is to present you the essential future skill and competency in Thailand, the strategic focus on education and how we foster or implement this to our high school students. In Thailand, we feel that we believe that effective skills development can result in enhancement of competency. And our experience shows that when we go to visit a school in the rural area, it will be easier for us to explain the students and the teachers in those schools what we're going to do. I mean, the skill development. It is easier to mention the term skill than to mention the term competency. Sometimes it's quite difficult to explain what are competencies and how to develop competency among the high school students. But when we talk to them in terms of skill development, it's easier for them to understand. And therefore, in this presentation and actually in Thailand, we merge the two things together, the skill and competency. And most of the time, we use the term skills instead of the term competency. I would like to show you how we set up or how we establish our essential future skills. We do establish the future skill of Thailand by going to the so-called essential future skill set, comprising the 4 skill sets: the hard skills, the soft skills, the 21st century skill, and more recently, and I think it's the most important one, is the method skills. We all know that hard skills are specific teachable abilities that are measurable and required to perform a specific job. Hard skills are typically acquired through formal education or on-the-job experience, while soft skills are personal attributes, communication skills, and internal abilities that determine how one interacts with others and navigates situations. The 21st century skills is a comprehensive framework of abilities and competency essential for modern success. Basically, 21st century skills are broadly categorized into three core areas: the learning and innovation skills, the digital literacy skills, and the career and life skills. And when I tabulate it, it will be easier to understand. But although I divide it into three columns, but in fact, they intermingle together. They had an interrelationship between the three columns. The learning and innovation skill comprising the 4 C's. The digital literacy, right now, we already include artificial intelligence into the digital literacy and the career and life skill. I think we are now used to with all these 21st century skills. Regarding the meta skills, in fact, in Thailand, we emphasize a lot on the meta skill after the COVID-19 pandemic. The meta skills are the foundation skills that help individuals learn new skills, solve problems, and to navigate change. These are the diagram show you the three main components of meta skills: self-awareness, creativity, and resilience. And each main component comprise three elements. For self-awareness, accept reality, know oneself, empathy. For creativity, the problem solving, innovate, and improvise. And for resilience, learn, overcome failure, and experience. But the keyword is adaptability. As we all know, the prefix meta means change. So its skills are essential to respond or to cope with change. And we are now in the rapid changing world. So I therefore emphasize a lot on the meta skill and how to implement the meta skills. By looking at these 4 future skill sets, we finally come to the 26 essential future skills. And we present this to the Office of the Education Council, or OEC for short, on March the 7th, 2024. Among these 26 essential future skills, there are 7 basic skills: literacy, numeracy, learning literacy, socio-cultural literacy, ethical literacy, health literacy, and financial literacy, and also the 19 advanced skills: active learning and growth mindset, critical analytical thinking, communication, negotiation, creativity and innovation, cognitive flexibility, complex problem solving, ICT and digital literacy, emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, collaboration, leadership and social influence, initiative, listening and ideation, system thinking, self-awareness and self-management, and judgment decision-making, technology design, monitoring, resilience, stress tolerance. In Thailand, we have to work in concert with the Ministry of Higher Education. I mean, the Ministry of Education, we focus on the pre-universities education, particularly the high school, but for the universities, all these essential skills will be implemented, particularly the advanced skill, will be implemented by the university under the Ministry of Higher Education. after these 26 essential skills were approved by the Office of Education Council, we start working. Think how we can foster or introduce the essential future skill to the high school students. And we focus on the term edutainment. I mean, obviously, skill you cannot implement by just teaching in the classroom, but you have to allow students to learn by doing some activities, the extracurricular activities. And then finally, there will be someone who summarize or make a brief summary of how they learned by doing those activities. And therefore, we come up with the first activity or the first initiative, the hackathon. We call it the OEC hackathon. It is an initiative to foster essential future skills by providing a platform for high school students to develop innovative solutions to local community issues and problems. This is our strategy. We ask students in the rural area or anywhere in Thailand, then look at their own community and to identify some local community problems. In some area, those problems relate to health. In some area, relate to pollution. In some area, relate to education. And in some area, relate to the financial or economic situation of their communities. Whatever they are, and the students will go through all those solutions, try to identify the data or the information regarding those problems or issues. They have to discuss with people in the schools or even in the local governments, people who reside in those communities. And then when they come up with a clear problems, and then they start to learn how to solve those problems by using the hackathon approach. Students, they develop essential skills through the design thinking process. Among hundreds of teams, each team comprised approximately 4 high school students and also 1 teacher in their schools. They work together, and we send off a team. Is a consultant team to teach them what is the design thinking process and how to implement the concept of design thinking to solve the problems. Meanwhile, for the teacher, they were taught to become the innovative coaches. The essential future skills were approved in 2024 and then 2025. In fact, in the last half of 2024, we start the hackathon initiative. The season 1 comprised just over 200 schools from 56 provinces around the country. Among these, 203. Finally, the pitching process will detect the top 10 team. And the top 10 team will do the presentation we call the pitching day during February 7 to 9, 2025. All of them were stayed in Bangkok, and they were coached by our consultant team. And then on the 9th of February 2025, each team do the presentation. So it teaches them how to do the presentation as well, instead of just to do how to solve the problem of the community. These are the, I call it the cozy ambient of the season 1 hackathon. You can see a lot of students, they work together, they spend hours, or they spend sometimes almost the whole day try to figure out how to solve the problem. They are around to ask the consultant team. Many of them use the AI and also digital technology to identify the specific solution for the specific problems. And on the right side, you can see there's a committee who determine the winner of these 10 teams, among these 10 teams. All these committee, the member of the committee come from private sectors, come from universities, come from the education sectors. When we finish the season 1, we ask academic faculties of one university. Actually, the season 1 is the Chulalongkorn University, one of the top universities in the country, to evaluate the ultimate result of the hackathon season 1. And then when they evaluate what kind of future essential skills that the student gain from joining the hackathon, they come with the 3 essential skills: the creativity and innovation thinking, the active learning and growth mindset, the resilience and stress tolerance. When we succeed in doing the season 1 hackathon, we decide to proceed. But this year, on the season 2, we call it the OEC Hackathon Season 2. But right now, you can see the number of the schools joined the program went up almost just over 3 times, from 203 to 614 schools from all provinces around the country. The winner team will receive the Royal Shield Award from Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn. And the pitching day among the 10 to identify the winner was done on the 7th of February 20 and 26. And these are the atmosphere of the Hackathon Season 2. A lot of participation from students. Even the students who did not go through the final round of Season 1, they are welcome to join this Season 2 if they would love to do. And on the right-hand side, the presentation. We asked the academic faculties of another university to help us to evaluate the effect of the hackathon. And these are the evaluation. There's significant evidence of program effectiveness. Students demonstrate statistically significant improvements across all 6 targeted skills: the active learning and growth mindset, the ICT digital literacy, creativity innovation, the critical and analytical thinking, the communication, the resilience and stress tolerance. Therefore, we have already done 2 hackathons annually. What's next? We know that hackathon alone may not be able to be used to foster essential skill. We need some other initiative, and this is another initiative to use the board game. I won't go into detail about the board game, but it makes students learn how to the communication, the collaboration, and a lot of things. And I think we have to evaluate the effectiveness of this board game, which at some stage we will present to you as the experience sharing. Okay, so I finished my presentation. So I've already present you the 26 future essential skills in Thailand, how we force the essential skill to our high school students. And hopefully we are welcome to have your comments on what we have done and what you have done in your country, so that we can share and learn together for the benefit of the students and for the countries. Thank you. And again, I would like to apologize for not being able to present, to do this presentation in person. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for your attentive listening to all the presentation. You can see this is a fine example that Education Council try to actually walk the talk when they actually touch on the resilient future, building adaptive, equitable, and sustainable education. No? To that one, I think the effort is go even further in terms of when we look from the global level, OECD, and then look at the regional, and then zooming in at the country level. And then we need also to make sure that our effort will be sustained and also knowledge sharing across the globe. So that's why we will move on to the last segment of this morning. No? Professor Joe Hara, he is the president of the World Education Research Association. He will be talking about the reconceptualizing the educational ecosystem, exploring the dynamic interplay of system and individual in promoting resilience, retention, and reform across educational continuum. No? Please, Dr. Joe, if you may, on the stage. No? While he's walking, let me also introduce him a little bit more, that he has been invited to deliver a keynote address to this conference and answered placed so many times. His participation is currently pending final. Okay. See, basically, he is now current president of the VERA. Last year, if you remember, Professor Yunus also was here together with us. So this is a kind of cordial, supportive, and we're glad that we will see both of them in this conference. And to this segment, it will be an initial kind of glimpse to see how he will address this issue across the globe. And if you are still interested, tomorrow morning at this also room, they will have also talking about Thailand Education Research Association. Without further ado, the floor is yours, Professor Joe.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Sawadee Khub. Thank you for your invitation to speak to you today. I'd like to thank specifically our colleagues in the Office of the Educational Council, and also my friends and colleagues in the Equitable Education Foundation, and of course, those of you who are helping launch the Thai Educational Research Association tomorrow morning. It's a very exciting time for us in WERA. WERA is a global association. We represent and engage with scholars in 101 countries through national associations in 28 countries and 9 different institutional members, of whom the EEF is a key member. So it's very important for us to be in contexts and situations like this, to think about and to share our ideas in key aspects of global education, and then to learn from the specific understanding of educational and educational research in contexts such as Thailand. Today, what I'd like to think about in the overall theme of resilience is to look at the way in which we deal with resilience in the context of the teaching career and the life cycle of teaching across an educational ecosystem. And what I'd like to do is look at the global theme of teacher shortage and teacher dropout, connect that to the idea of how we think about teacher education, and then look at some possible ways in which we can develop responses to facilitate the development of resilience within the teaching population in general, on the understanding that that will connect to resilience within the system of education in total. So to start then a little bit with some ideas around global teacher shortage. Teacher shortage is a major global issue. It's one that affects all systems in every part of the world at a global level. You can see some of the statistics there. They're quite stark. Between estimates from UNESCO that we will need 44 million new teachers by 2030. We may need $120 billion worldwide to do this. In countries like the Netherlands and Japan, we have teacher shortages between 14 and 30%. We've got perhaps in the UK, we have substantial teacher shortages in specific areas. So this is a global problem. And in our WERA conferences around the world, when we speak to colleagues from different systems, they all identify this as being a critical issue. And then one of the issues that we have is it's not just producing teachers, it's keeping them within the system. That quite often teachers will be trained at great expense across multiple years in multiple systems, and then we lose them. So for example, across 2015 to 2022, and UNESCO's survey showed us that about 9% of teachers in primary systems drop out. So that's 1 in 10 teachers globally do not continue with their career after training. The UK has a pretty high leaving rate. My own country has a relatively low one. But what the point we're trying to make is that in terms of a human resource within education systems, losing substantial numbers of teachers actually contributes to the challenges around the teacher shortage. And one way of conceptualizing this and one way of thinking about this is in the context of attrition and attention to leave. Attrition is people actually leaving. Okay, so again, you can see the global average on primary level is about 9%. You've got in some countries like the UK, like England, it's perhaps 1 in 10, and in Australia, it's about 2%, with different levels in between. So you can see that there's a variety of different levels of attrition, but it's still substantial. What's particularly interesting, though, I think, in terms of a broader idea about how teachers think about them staying in systems, you can see when you ask teachers, do they plan still to be teaching within the next 5 years? There's a substantial difference. So in European countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, nearly 1 in 3 teachers are saying, I won't be here in 5 years. In Australia, again, it's the same number. Across the OECD average is about 17%. Interestingly, in the region here, in the Southeast Asian region, it's got one of the lowest. The statistics I have were for South Korea and Portugal. I didn't find any necessarily for Thailand, but obviously you yourselves will know this. But again, the idea that we are going to lose teachers and even more teachers think of leaving, and they don't always map onto each other, but I think it's an interesting challenge and an interesting point. So one of the things I think we need to be interested in as global educational scholars, if we're going to inform and suggest policy changes, is why do we think this is happening? What is occurring within teaching globally that is seeing this type of retention crisis and this type of attrition crisis? In my own professional work, I'm involved in a project called the Teacher's Professional Journey, which is a 10-year-long study trying to see what happens to teachers from training through to the first decade of their professional life. So it's tracking them across a decade and touching base with them at multiple points in that, both in terms of quantitative data surveys and also qualitative engagement with them to see what actually happens. Because if we're going to make cases to policymakers about how we change the careers of teaching or the way in which we think of teaching, we need data. So we need to be able to say, this is their experience and this is what we need to do. So it's a longitudinal survey of the teacher's professional life. And this is based on a relatively old conception now, over 30 years old, the idea of the continuum of teacher education. And it makes the case that teachers aren't just trained or educated in a pre-service moment. The teacher education and the process of continuing to become a teacher lasts across a career. It happens in the first phase, in the initial teacher education or the pre-service preparation. It moves into the critical phase of induction, and a lot of global research around the type and quality of the teaching profession and career looks at this period, what happens in that small period between the time you leave education and you move into your profession. And then it looks at the continuing professional development or the in-service, the continuing support and training that teachers need across their professional lives. And if we're going to think and talk about the idea of maintaining and enhancing and supporting teachers across their professional lives, we need to think about their career as a continuum. Their training and their support and their education doesn't just finish at the point in which they become qualified and registered. It's an ongoing idea. And I know this is something that inspires many different systems, including the one here. So the first phase of the Teacher's Professional Journey project, we're only at the literature phase and we're doing the very first stage of data collection. But what we did was the project looked at global research to see what do we know about from global research in terms of why are teachers leaving the profession and what encourages them to stay. Now, one of the challenges with these sorts of lists is one is just the opposite of the other, which often happens in these things. But you can see the types of things that actually influence the retention of teachers within systems. Some of them are around the idea of what teachers are being asked to do and how they're judged, how accountability systems impact on the way in which teachers perceive their own value, which is the whole idea of trust and autonomy and the idea of how are teachers perceived within a system. Are they seen as being autonomous professionals with the capacity and the ability to make decisions for themselves and to give narratives of quality that emerge from their own work? Or are they in systems where external pressures are constantly looking at them and judging them and making decisions about the quality of what they do? And that continuum is a really interesting one in terms of teachers wishing to stay. In very high stakes accountability systems, which impose a lot of external requirements on teachers, they tend to be unhappier. Whereas if they work in systems where there's a strong collaborative culture underneath a leadership idea and a leadership concept of teaching that supports autonomy and supports engagement and supports shared leadership, they're more likely to stay. There's also other sort of specific issues, which is being involved in decision-making in their own professional practice. Systems that give teachers agency tend to be systems that keep teachers. Teachers that reduce their agency tend to lose teachers in a very simple way. There's other pressures, of course. There's the external pull. And in some systems, interestingly, teachers are seen as being highly prized professionals who can do jobs outside of their own areas. And for better pay and better conditions, they move into different systems, in subsystems like that. And then macro pressures like costs and availability and their capacity to live near where they work is quite often a problem as well. And then just to look at the bottom there, resources around resilience and coping strategies and sense of purpose are critically important. And I think this is where it interacts with the theme of what we're looking at today, which is resilience and future planning. And that's where I'd like to move to for the next few minutes. Just before we get into this, there's an interesting way in which resilience research within teaching is being presented. And it's being presented as resilience is a personal capacity. It's a personal challenge, not necessarily a systemic issue. So this comes from a blog that was published by the British Education Research Association a couple of days ago, who says that in terms of resilience, teachers who cope are saying, well, they're the resilient teachers. And teachers who don't, well, that's their problem, really. So we need to be very careful about the way in which we position this. Because ultimately, I think the argument I would make and that we education researchers make is that there's actually an ecosystem involved here. You can't just focus on the individual. you need to look at teachers within the context of the system. So there's systemic and there's individual issues and challenges in relation to how we think of resilience within teaching. And that's the ecosystem idea. And the multiple voices and the multiple stakeholders within this, there's teachers, students, policymakers, parents, external society, all have a role within this and all have a role within the teaching career. So, and there's a lot here, but if we begin to look at policy and if we think of the way in which resilience is framed within a whole range of different policy and research areas, you can begin to see the way in which different systems and different places are conceptualizing and thinking about research and resilience. So at intergovernmental level, again, resilience is seen as a system and teacher level capacity, which I think is interesting. At the EU level, which is the system that I work in most of the time, the Council of Europe produced a document about 5 or 6 years ago, and it talks about strengthening teacher well-being and support through continuing professional development. So a recognition, again, of the continuum, the idea that teachers, if they're going to remain resilient or remain active within the profession, need support across this. Within Australia, within the professional standards within teaching, it names resilience as an explicit personal quality, which is interesting, but connects it to school leaders and said that school leaders are key individuals within a system who need to be resilient, but also they need to have emotional intelligence and empathy. And when you talk to school leaders, they say, oh God, I've got so many other things to do. I have to do all this as well. So it can be a challenge, okay? School leadership is a very particular area. In terms of applied research, European-funded research, it talks about resilience being built into teacher education programs, which we'll talk a little about in a second. Again, I'll refer to the research from Mansfield and colleagues in a few moments, which, and along with research emerging from China, talks about resilience as that interplay between the individual protective factors and contextual supports. So again, it's the concept of the ecosystem, and it's the concept of how we create systems that facilitate personal development with systemic support. And then there's a critical perspective, because in all aspects of education research, we need to look at the totality of what we're thinking about. And quite a lot of comparative study that was done across Australia, Canada, the UK, and the USA made the argument that when we talk about resilience and well-being within education systems, we tend to talk about it in the context of students. We don't think about it in the context of teachers, which in itself is an interesting statement of where we're valuing within our research ideas. So, how do we think about this at a practical level? So drawing on some of the research that I spoke about a second ago, if we're going to think about resilience in the first level of the continuum, in terms of initial teacher education, in terms of teacher preparation, there's a question here of, well, what do we look at? Well, we obviously think about the resources that we bring. We obviously consider what exactly can we bring into a teacher education setting that facilitates teachers in training, teachers in education, to begin to develop these resilience competences or these capacities to create a way of thinking about the professional life that will allow them continue within the profession for an extended period. So there's things around individual characteristics, around motivation, around optimism, around social and emotional competence, some of the areas that we heard about in our first presentation today. There's also contextual resources. What is in the environment that facilitates this? What do we create within the environment of teacher education? So there's relationships, that key idea of relationships that we've already heard about. And in teacher education, that's maybe with school leaders, it's with program leaders, it's with colleagues within systems, people going through the same training as they are, our colleagues in school, and mentors as well, the critical role of mentorship within this idea. And then it's looking at the school culture, where we're encouraging initial teacher education students to develop their craft, to develop their capacity. What types of schools are we sending them to? And what cultures are within that school? And of course, that's contextually specific, because different regions and different countries and different places have different types of school cultures. And I suppose that the point that we would think about in WERA, that's where the individual resource base of an indigenous education research culture helps support this. Then we look at strategies. If we're thinking about resources, and that's one way, then how do you build strategies for teachers in training to deal with these issues? So things like problem solving, work-life balance, professional learning, and emotional regulation are seen as being important here as well, which ultimately leads to this outcome where you have well-being, teachers who have a sense of well-being and who are resilient. So that's initial teacher education. And if we were looking at a four-stage model, I won't spend too long on this, but there's an idea that you move from raising awareness at a most basic level, within your teacher education systems, you build in an awareness of the importance of resilience. You move into providing places for teachers, particularly in practicum situations, when they're in schools learning. You provide support for that, perhaps through a blended learning system, that teachers who are learning to teach, who are in schools, they're given an opportunity to engage and think and work with mentors and colleagues, perhaps through blended learning. You also think about targeted interventions within programs to help students who may be struggling, or to help all students to think about this issue of well-being and resilience. Or the ultimate level, which I think we should all aspire to within teacher education, is how do we embed this holistically into all teacher education programs? How from the outset do we create systems and structures that see this as being a critical competence? If we're going to talk about then those who are already within the teaching career and those who are within the system and who want to maintain their capacity to perform effectively. Again, there's an idea of different levels. We look at the personal level, where we encourage those who are engaged in the teacher profession to engage in self-care and emotional management. And that might be just a simple time within a busy teaching day, there's space for reflection and space to step out. In some systems, that's embedded and built in. In others, teachers get no space. They're constantly working. So that's one thing. There's how do you train teachers to deal with conflict? Quite often, not always though, but conflict can be at the core of some challenges that teachers have in relation to their well-being. So how do you facilitate their dealing with that in a formal, structured way? Then how do you look at this key issue in relation to partnerships and key issues in relation to the whole continuum and the ecosystem of education? How do we do this? We do this by talking about how do you encourage student and parent voice and systems, but then how do you facilitate teachers to engage with student and parent voice, which can be a challenge in certain situations. And then how do you create work environments that are positive and supportive and developmental for teachers? A couple of quick things. As we talk about this, and as we talk about systemic change and change to support teachers across their career, I think we need to be aware of two things. Firstly, globally, there has been almost a huge amount of change within teaching and the teaching profession over the last 10 years. There's been pushes internationally prior to COVID to think about how we do things and competence frameworks and that. COVID had a profound impact on the education system as a whole, one we're still just thinking about and becoming aware of. So there's an element of change fatigue. And I know many systems, including the Thai system, have re-looked at the way in which they engage in teacher education recently. And at some stage, we have to let systems embed and not constantly change. There has to be an opportunity for that. The second thing is, and you would see that some of the things I was recommending there a few minutes ago was talking about programmatic change and embedding ideas and embedding new things. There is this concept in curriculum studies called the infinitely elastic curriculum, that you just keep throwing things into the curriculum. You never take anything out. You put more and more and more in. And whether it's AI or technology or well-being or driving or whatever it might be, you just keep filling the curriculum with things, but you can never take anything out. So we need to be really careful about this. We need to be careful about what we're asking education systems to do, because there is a limit to what they can do and what they can do effectively. So I'll finish then with sort of my connecting what we're doing today, what we're doing tomorrow. If we're actually going to make meaningful change at a systemic level in a local area, then what we need to do is draw on local knowledge, contextual knowledge, and the experience and knowledge of local communities, in this case, the Thai educational research community, and our colleagues in the EEF and the OEC in Brazil last year, where they came to the WIRA conference and made a great intervention across a number of areas, and also the launch of the Thai Educational Research Association, who will be critical partners in bringing the experience of your research community to our global community, and hopefully will mediate the knowledge and the role of international research into a local Thai level. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you, Professor Joe O'Hara, President of the World Education Research Association. I know that actually the time doesn't allow us to go into a full Q&A session, but I can tell you that all these speakers still around with us, so when you interact with them, you can pose questions. But again, thanks to all the keynote speakers, Dr. Naomi Leodongne, Senior Project Manager from OECD, Dr. Majale V. Rawako, the Director from CMO Innotech, and also Professor Dr. Prasit Wattanapa, Honorary Member, Mahidol University Council, and the last presenter, Professor Joe O'Hara, the President of World Education Research Association. Please join me a big hand to them. I know that basically I think a lot of presenter in the afternoon, also your mind is already that what I'm going to present, what I'm going to talk about, and I urge you that you should also mention that how your presentation related to resilient future, building adaptive, equitable, and sustainable education. But before I will take like authoritarian role to let you go for lunch, I would like to hear the final words from our keynote speaker. So just to save the time, we're not going to stage on over there. I will have a person to deliver mic to you, a microphone. So I would ask each presenter to, after you hear the presentation, starting from OECD, CMO Innotech, and also a zoom in from the OEC on the hackathon, and the last one actually like talking about the major network. I would like to hear the final thought. Let's start from Dr. Maja Lee V. Rawako from CMO Innotech. May I have the microphone to her, please? Could you stand up? If you may stand up so we can...
Yes, Sawadika again. Yes, I think as a final closing word, my message is that AI should not replace human judgment. But its outcomes would depend. It's not automatic on the enabling conditions, human capital, sustainable infrastructure, and equitable access for teachers and for learners. Pankup ka.
Thank you. Yes, Naomi, please.
Thank you for your attention until now. I would say my final words are that it's important to have the data that Joe O'Hara presented and I presented today, and also the presentation from the colleague at OEC. And you saw a lot of data. I hope this gave you like food for thought. I think this helps formalize intuitions sometimes that we have about what happens in a country, what happens in a school. Use the data, reflect on what was shared, think about what you can put in place to address the issues we also showed. So I would like to stress the power of data, thinking about it, bringing that back to your day-to-day work, and try to be resilient, starting from evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Joe, please.
In some ways, my message is the same. I think you should have confidence in the knowledge that you generate yourself in your professional lives and your capacity to influence policy through the research that you do and the practice that you engage with, and the confidence to bring the specific cultural, contextual, and indigenous knowledge of Thai educational research to a global level. Today, we presented a wide range of research from the global to the regional to the local, and I think that can only be benefit, or we can only get the benefit of that within this context if you bring your own knowledge and professional practice and research to this as well. So that dynamic interplay between what you know, do, research, and generate, and bringing that to international studies and data, and then also bringing the international studies to your own practice. There's that critical dynamic, and that's where I think the EEF and the Thai Education Research Association will be so important. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Joe. So it's very clear today this an end is a means toward the prosperity of our society and the global community. No? Again, thank you so much for all keynote speakers for making effort to be here. I think it means a lot. I can speak on behalf of Thai people here. We appreciate that you coming here because seeing in person is much more seeing, virtually. Especially like now, we communicating a lot with Travago. Also, we just only put on the WhatsApp, no? But seeing in person is really tremendous. And also from the World Education Research Association, we know your commitment for the continuing 2 years. This is an excellent collaboration going to happen in Thailand. Before we let everybody go for lunch, I have a few announcements. First, the room for eating. Yes, that's really good because you are being a good student, so you need to be rewarded with food. ห้องพระพรหมชั้น 3, the third floor for the participants นะครับ You receive a card, but basically that for counting how many us over here. But you go on down to the third floor. This floor is fourth floor นะครับ And for other members, I believe OEC will escort you a proper place. So make sure that you vet before you go for the afternoon session. And also in afternoon session, parallel session is very fruitful. And tomorrow, definitely again in this very room, there will be only half. One will be talking about Thailand Education Research Association. No? So you can, if you come as a team, you can spare yourself that you join parallel and also in the ThaiCER room. And also please join me thanks for the note taker from Chulalongkorn University, เกษตรศาสตร์ University, and also Chiang Mai University. They flew themselves over here also. Thank you so much for your contribution to make this much more impactful to the whole research community. Last but not the least, Dr. Pravit asked me to make sure to let everybody know that Thailand being a part of OECD roadmap to accession. Definitely, we will go further in terms of making sure that Thailand stand up at the global platform. With that note, the social emotional learning survey that Naomi mentioned from the morning, that will be also one of a major tools that actually we implement starting from this year. And definitely will help us to make sure that we are not defining the quality of the education too narrow. I'm not blaming, but basically we're going further. No? So I think that would come to a close for this morning session. Thank you everybody for your participation. You had been very good audience. Wonderful. And thank you. I look at every one of you. You are looking so good. Still, the whole morning. Yes. Good luck ครับ Enjoy your lunch นะครับ